Welcome to this presentation of Cheshire Harbor Keystone Arch Trolley Bridge by Barry Emery. My investigation of this bridge began when I saw this old postcard. It's labeled Bassett Brook in the Berkshire Hills, Adams, Mass, but underneath someone had handwritten Cheshire Harbor. Well, I live in the section of Cheshire known as the Harbor, and I had never seen or heard of this bridge. I wanted to find out more about it. By the way, that old postcard is made from a black and white photograph. And you can see when they colored in the postcard, the artist took a little liberty in some of the changes, but pretty much the exact same representation. So what about this trolley bridge? Well, the mysteries were that, first of all, was it in Adams or Cheshire? A little confusing the way the postcard was labeled. Secondly, is the bridge still there? And if it is there, what condition is it in? And finally, is it historically significant? It's obviously an old bridge, but how old? Before we take a look at answering those questions, let's take a look at what a Keystone Arch Bridge is. Here's a photograph of a bridge in Rome with two arches. Every day, pedestrian and vehicles go over that bridge. It's still in use after 2,000 years. Here's a photograph of the oldest Keystone Arch Bridge in America, erected in 1698 in Philadelphia. It was widened, by the way, in 1893 to accommodate trolleys. I wonder if that same thing happened to the trolley bridge in Cheshire. What's a keystone? Well, it's a stone with a special shape, a trapezoidal shape. They all have the characteristic of being narrow at the bottom and wider at the top. That shape comes in all different sizes and architectural styles. But the other similarity is that it's always at the top of the arch, and it's the last stone to be placed. When that stone is inserted in the arch becomes locked in place, therefore the name keystone, and it gives the arch its strength. The way they make a keystone arch is by starting with a wooden form in the shape of the arch. This one going over a stream someplace. What they do is lay the stones over that arch. Here you can see they're working on both the left side and the right side of that wooden form. Once the keystone is put in place, the arch is finished. So our Keystone Arch Bridge has a trolley on it. And therefore, there must have been trolley service going between Cheshire and Adams. Let's take a look at where trolleys did go in Berkshire County. Unlike trains, they tended to follow the roadways. They didn't need a bed of stones because they were not as heavy as a train. And they also went along the roadways because it was more convenient for passengers to get on and off, either at their homes or in the villages and towns. The picture on the left shows Church Street in Cheshire. The town hall's visible there and a trolley coming up to it. The photograph on the right is actually Route 8, very near where Fred Mason Road intersects. That house is still there at the corner of Fred Mason Road and Route 8. And the picture at the bottom is another old postcard showing Commercial Street in Adams. Here's an enlargement of that postcard. I like that it shows the three modes of transportation commonly used at the turn of the 20th century: the automobile, the trolley, and the horse and buggy. The trolley, by the way, is located just about opposite where Cumberland Farms is on Commercial Street. North Adams had trolleys. These ran right down the middle of Main Street. Pittsfield as well, right down the center of North Street. The trolley line that serviced northern Berkshire and southern Vermont was known as the Hoosick Valley Street Railway. It was headquartered in Adams, and here's a picture of their early trolley car. They went as far south as Cheshire. They went up through Williamstown and up to Bennington. A later model of a trolley car. This one shows that interesting contraption at the front. It was a people catcher. If the trolley were about to run into a person, they would fall back onto that spring-loaded form and hopefully not get injured. Certainly better than getting run over by the trolley. This is Cheshire's Town Hall. It's a unique photograph because there are 3 different trolleys from 3 different trolley companies. Cheshire was served by the Berkshire Street Railway, by the Pittsfield Electric Street Railway, and by the Hoosick Valley Street Railway. The office for the trolleys was the annex building next to the town hall, today used as office space. Here's a photograph of that ticket office. A couple of trolleys are there on Church Street. Another picture of a trolley on Church Street. This one must have been from the Pittsfield, the Berkshire Street Railway, because it's heading back south on its way to Lee and Lenox. The Pittsfield Street Rail, the Berkshire Street Railway came down Route 8 and crossed at the Farnham's causeway and went along the side of the reservoir. The trestle of the trolley is shown at the right here. It's a wooden trestle that was eventually replaced by an earth embankment. And that earth embankment can still be seen on the causeway. The Pittsfield Electric Street Railway came through Lanesboro and went along Lanesboro Road. Here's a picture of one of their trolleys as it goes through the Farnham section. Interesting that the way they used to get the limestone from the quarry down to the plant was with this overhead system of carts. The Hoosick Valley Street Railway went along Route 8, and here's a picture of the trolley coming from Maple Grove after a very large snowstorm in 1907. Notice the trolley tracks had to be cleared, but the roads were not plowed, and the cars just ran on top of packed down snow. The houses on the left are gone, but the building on the right of the trolley is still there. So, back to the mystery. Is the bridge still there? Here's a map showing Route 8. It's also Eastview Drive at the time. And the little dotted line along that road represents the trolley track. So it made a sharp bend as it went over the stream known as Bassett Brook, coming from the upper left of this map. That picture I showed you of the trolley on from Maple Grove would be just about at the end of the top end of this red line. So I knew where Eastview Drive was, and I knew where that where the Bassett Brook was. So I drove down to that location to see if there was anything left of the bridge. Mary Ann, my wife, came with me. And when we parked the car just off of Route 8, we noticed the railings. When we looked over the edge of the railing, this is what we saw. The bridge is still there. It's a huge structure, still in great condition. Here are the stones that were formed to begin to form the arch. This is a close-up of the keystone. A little hard to see with the reflections and the shadows, but it's that stone right in the center, larger than all the other stones. The bridge is very impressive. My friend John Bianchi is in this photograph to give us an idea of the scale of the bridge. It's a pretty spot. Bassett Brook runs under the bridge and then flows over the stones and boulders, forming many little waterfalls. Underneath the bridge is a ledge, and it goes the whole width of the bridge. It's a little difficult to get down onto it, but once you're there, you can walk underneath the arch. It's a pretty impressive structure. About 20 feet below this ledge is Bassett Brook. You can see it down in the lower left of the photograph. Here's an early photograph showing a trolley on the bridge. The house on the left is on Eastview Drive. We'll see a close-up of that in a second. Another photograph showing the trolley bridge. This is before Route 8 was relocated. Route 8 now does not use Eastview Drive. It goes by the state police barracks and down the hill. The train trestle in the foreground is now part of the Ashwaubenon Rail Trail. That trolley going by the house is going up Eastview Drive. This view of the trolley bridge is no longer possible. When Route 8 was relocated, a big embankment of earth now separates that railroad trestle from the old trolley bridge. I think it was relocated primarily to eliminate that sharp curve going over Bassett Brook. When they built the new road, they didn't build a bridge. They put a culvert underneath that earth embankment, and Bassett Brook runs through that culvert. You can see from the date on the cement work, it was done in 1935. That's about the time when large trucks started to become popular means of transporting goods, and it must have been very difficult for the trucks to make that corner going over the bridge. Trolleys also were not used very often at the time because automobiles had now become the popular mode of transportation. So the trolley companies had gone out of business. From Route 8, the bridge is almost invisible. Here's a photograph taken in the winter without any leaves on the trees. It's still very difficult to see the bridge. When you're driving by in your car, you're going fast enough so that you're not likely to even know the bridge exists. And certainly in other times of the year with leaves on the trees, it's impossible to see the bridge from Route 8. When I gave a talk about this bridge and there were 80 or 90 people in the room, only 1 or 2 people knew the bridge existed, and everyone in the room lived in Cheshire. So it was pretty unknown even to the residents of town. So we know the bridge still exists, but is it in Adams or Cheshire? To answer that question, we'll take a look at where that sharp corner is going over Bassett Brook. Here's an image from Google Earth. The green is Route 8. You can see that it goes right by the State Police Barracks now and down into the harbor to Maple Grove. So Cheshire is up at the top of this photograph. You can just make out Cheshire Reservoir at the very center of the top. Eastview Drive is still there. The red line is where Eastview Drive is located. And you can see that initially it went around a sharp bend going over Bassett Brook. That was the old Route 8. Another view of the same location shows Eastview Drive coming from the left. It would have crossed over what is now Route 8, gone over that bridge, and come back down to where Route 8 is located. In the lower right-hand corner, there are boats stored there. And when you drive on Route 8, you can probably still see some of those boats. Bassett Brook flows from Bassett Reservoir, which can be seen at the top of this photograph. So is it in Adams or Cheshire? Well, here's a map of this location. And you can clearly see there's Eastview Drive and the corner of where the bridge is going over the brook. And Adams is at the town line, is shown at the top of this map. Cheshire Harbor and Cheshire itself is at the bottom. So we're clearly inside of Cheshire at this location. Bassett Brook flowing underneath the bridge. So what condition is it in? Well, from the earlier photographs, you can see it's still there. It does have some tree issues. Here's a birch tree growing out of a gap in the arch. That tree has since been cut down, so hopefully it's not doing any more damage to the stonework. There's a very large tree that was growing at the entrance to the bridge, knocking over part of the abutment there. That tree has also been cut down to help preserve the stonework. You can still see the guardrails along what was Route 8. Mary Ann is walking down towards where those boats are stored, heading towards Route 8. And this is what you see at the end of that little stretch of road, old road. And the arrow points to one of the boats stored there. So, is it historically significant? I wanted to know when the bridge was made. In my investigation and research, I found this petition written in 1828. It was signed by men from Williamstown, Adams, Cheshire, and North Adams. One name I'm pointing to there is David Anthony Jr., and it was his property where the bridge was eventually going to be built. And you have Burlingame's names here, a name known in Adams from Burlingame Road. Now, the county commissioners were in charge of all road work between communities. So this petition went to them, asking them to rebuild the road and the bridge connecting Cheshire, Adams, North Adams, and Williamstown. A close-up shows that the petition was signed in April of 1828. Alterations may be made in the county road leading from the line of the town of Williamstown to the town of Alfie Smith, North Adams Village in Adams, southerly through South Village to the meeting house at Cheshire Corners. Pretty ambitious road project. In September 30th of 1828, that's what the petition, how it read. A little easier to read in this form. I found that petition, by the way, in a cardboard box in the basement of the old Athenaeum building in Pittsfield, where county records are stored. This has a bunch of survey markings on it. And when I found it, I was a little confused because in that oval at the upper right, it says crossing Franklin Brook to land of David Anthony Jr. The arrow points to that sharp corner where the bridge is located. And at the bottom, the oval clearly says Franklin Brook under Keystone Bridge, 1830. Well, I found this map made in 1850, and that brook is labeled Franklin Brook. When I found this 1858 map, it shows a family, Franklins, living in that area. And therefore, the brook must have been named for the family that owned the land. This is the earliest photograph I have of the bridge. This is obviously before the bridge was used by trolleys. Doesn't look anything like the current bridge. So that led me to the idea that it must have been altered at some point in time so that the trolleys could use it. Another photograph showing the trolley on the bridge and that house being demolished. This is the earliest photograph that the State Highway Department had of the bridge from 1928. So we've answered the questions of the bridge mystery. We know the bridge is there. We know now that it's in Cheshire. We know what condition it's in. Is it historically significant? Well, I did find that it had been altered. This article from 1896 talks about a miraculous escape. 4 people went over the bridge in an accident. They fell down to the bottom of the stream. Luckily, they were not seriously injured. And one of the paragraphs in that article is shown on the right. The road is only 15 feet wide. It has a sharp turn and is just at the foot of a steep hill. On either side of the road is a steep gorge whose edges are of solid rock with a little brook at the bottom. So in 1896, it was still the original width that the county commissioners had specified in 1830 when that road construction was done. It's wider now. It's almost 40 feet wide. So that tells me that it must have been altered and widened for the trolleys, just like that bridge in Philadelphia. And when I went underneath the arch and took a close look, I could see that there was a crack showing along where the two parts of the bridge were connected, the original on the right and the new widened part on the left. But is it historically significant, even though it's been altered? Here's a list of bridges from Massachusetts that are on the National Register of Historic Places. By the way, the Highway Department did not have Cheshire's Trolley Bridge listed. They had forgotten about it because it was no longer in use. The earliest one shown in this list is in Ipswich in 1764. It's the oldest one in the United States. It had to be altered quite a bit during a hurricane, which damaged it, and steel beams had to be placed. So it's no longer in its original condition. If we look at other bridges listed on this, the early ones are shown here. There's one from 1834. There's one from 1835. And there's one from 1837. All the others are much later. Our bridge in Cheshire was constructed in 1830. So it's older than any of the others shown, except for that one in Ipswich. To me, that makes it historically significant and should be on the Register of National Historic Places. Here's one from that list of 1835. It's a footbridge, nowhere near as big a structure as the trolley bridge in Cheshire. And yet it's considered historically significant. This is a photograph showing the repairs done to that Ipswich bridge. And so you can see that it's been substantially altered. And here's a photograph of a bridge in Stockbridge. A Berkshire Eagle article talked about it being historically significant and one of the oldest bridges in Massachusetts. It's listed on the Historic Bridges Registry. So the Cheshire Bridge is pretty impressive. And I think it deserves to be preserved. It would be a wonderful place just off of Route 8 to have historical markers talking about Keystone Arch bridges, talking about the use of trolleys. There's plenty of room there for cars to park. By the way, there is another Keystone Arch bridge that you can see along Route 8. It's just as you enter Adams from the by the old stone mill. Where that car is parked, if you look down on the Hoosick River, you'll see this double arch. Made in 1901. And it was done by the trolley company in preparation for their route south into Cheshire. So the alteration to the Cheshire Harbor Trolley Bridge must have been made in approximately that same time frame. I could not find any records showing the exact time of construction or how much or how long it took. I did find some newspaper articles talking about the work being done. By the way, that bridge on the upstream side was also widened in 1923. You can see the stonework where that black arrow is pointing of the original arch bridge. So I hope you enjoyed learning about a very special bridge. Thank you. And I hope that at some point you can get to visit this location in Cheshire and appreciate what's still there.